I think the week of April 20th to 24th, 2026, on General Hospital is shaping up to be one of those weeks where everything feels like it's quietly building and then suddenly explodes. I was honestly wondering what Carly thought was going on in her own house. Did she really assume Valentin Cassadine was just upstairs the whole time while she had dinner with Lucas Jones? That moment becomes even more interesting when Valentin suddenly returns with major news. Now he's working with Nina Reeves, and to me, that's where everything starts to feel dangerous. Carly's reaction makes complete sense. I didn't realize Valentin would go this far in trying to convince her that Nina can be trusted. Maybe he believes it, or maybe he just needs Carly to believe it. Either way, I think this alliance is going to blow up sooner rather than later. By the end of the week, Valentin issues a warning, and I can't help but feel like Jocelyn Jacks is heading straight toward it. She's digging, pushing, not listening. And in Port Charles, that usually means trouble is already on the way. Meanwhile, Sonny Corinthos gets a blast from the past when Ethan Lovett shows up. I was kind of surprised by this, especially considering Christina Corinthos Davis's history with Ethan. That old teenage romance suddenly feels relevant again, even if it's just emotionally. Ethan asking Sonny for a job? That's where I start to question things. Sonny doesn't trust easily, so if he takes a risk here, I think it's not just about business. It's about filling a gap. With Jason Morgan away, Sonny might be looking for someone he can mold into a right-hand man. Still, bringing Ethan into that world feels like a gamble that could backfire fast. And then there's Britt. I feel like her storyline is quietly becoming one of the most intense. She's trying to protect someone she loves, but I didn't realize how deep this might go until the possibility that Rocco Falconeri followed her to the pier comes into play. If she finds out Jason has been covering for him, that changes everything. By the end of the week, Britt is looking for reassurance, and to me, that says she already knows things are slipping out of her control. Not everything is heavy, though. I actually like the contrast with Gio and Emma Scorpio Drake heading to Manhattan. Their trip to see Aladdin and going backstage feels almost like a reminder of what normal life could look like in this world. Still, even that makes me wonder, are these lighter moments setting up something bigger later? As the week unfolds, the tension spreads across Port Charles. Curtis Ashford confronts Isaiah. Rick Lansing remains skeptical as always, and Dante Falconeri starts asking questions that might lead somewhere unexpected. Midweek, I think things get more emotional. Jordan Ashford confiding in Curtis, Lulu Spencer voicing concerns. It all feels like the calm before something breaks. By Thursday, the connections really start tightening. Tracy Quartermain reuniting with Ethan, Willow Tate using her influence, and Felicia Scorpio receiving disturbing news. It's like every storyline is inching toward a turning point. And when Valentin finally issues that warning, I think that's the moment we're supposed to realize. Whatever game he's playing, the stakes are much higher than anyone around him fully understands. Maybe I'm wrong, but to me, this feels like one of those weeks where the consequences won't hit immediately. They'll unfold slowly, and by the time everyone realizes what's happened, it'll already be too late. I think this storyline is shaping up to be one of those classic General Hospital emotional gut punches, where the truth isn't just shocking, it completely reframes everything we thought we understood. From my perspective, Britt has been operating in the dark this whole time. When Britt Westbourne woke up after the shooting, she only had Jason Morgan's version of events to rely on. To me, that already puts her in a vulnerable position. She trusted him, but she didn't actually see what happened. Now I'm wondering if this reveal, that Rocco Falconeri may have been the one who shot Ross Cullum, is going to hit Britt harder than anything else. Because it's not just about the truth, it's about a child being at the center of something deadly. If I'm reading this right, Britt's panic makes total sense. I mean, Cullum already knows Jason didn't shoot him, and he's actively digging. The moment he gets close to the truth, Rocco becomes a target. That raises the stakes in a way that feels genuinely dangerous. I didn't realize before just how much Jason Morgan was risking here. Taking the blame isn't just about protecting someone. It's about shielding a kid from consequences that could destroy multiple families. To me, that gives his actions a whole new weight, and I think Britt is going to see him very differently after this. What really interests me is how Cassius Faison, posing as Nathan, fits into this. If he's the one who helped cover things up, then his motives get complicated. I was wondering if he's genuinely trying to protect Lulu Spencer's family, or if there's something more self-serving underneath it. Either way, Britt pushing him for answers could be the moment everything unravels. At the center of it all, I think Britt's emotional shift is the real story. She may go from confusion and suspicion to fear, gratitude, and a kind of moral conflict. Because now she's part of a secret that has to stay buried. And honestly, I may be wrong, but this feels like the kind of twist that doesn't stay contained for long. Secrets involving kids on General Hospital almost always explode eventually. And when this one does, it could take down everyone involved. I think this episode really leaned into that classic General Hospital balance: nostalgia on one side and messy, forward-moving conflict on the other. Ethan's return felt less like a plot twist and more like a quiet, emotional reset. When Ethan Lovett calls ahead and then reunites with Lulu Spencer, I was wondering if this was going to turn into another Ethan's in trouble arc. But instead, it plays softer. He's reflective, a little untethered, but not running. The mention of Luke Spencer really grounds the scene. His absence still lingers, and I didn't realize how much that family dynamic still carries emotional weight until this moment. To me, Ethan saying his stay is open-ended feels like a setup, not just for family bonding, but for inevitable chaos. Meanwhile, Laura's scene surprised me. Laura Collins choosing not to destroy Boyle when she easily could have. It adds a layer of strategic patience. I think she's playing a longer game here. Her alliance pitch doesn't come off as naive. It feels calculated. Bringing in the FAA and WSB angle suggests something bigger is unfolding behind the scenes. And maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like Sidwell's operation is about to get a lot more exposed than he expects. Boyle confessing his role in her setup was predictable, but the guilt seems real. Whether that actually leads to redemption is another question. The Michael/Christina conversation hit differently. Michael Corinthos is clearly spiraling into a revenge mindset, and I think the show is intentionally mirroring past family trauma. Christina calling that out felt important, like the show reminding us that cycles repeat if no one breaks them. Still, I was thinking, Michael doesn't seem like he's going to listen. His focus on destroying Willow, even if it costs his kids stability, feels like a turning point. And then there's the Willow versus Jacinda confrontation, which honestly escalated fast. Willow Corinthos accusing Jacinda of manipulating Wiley felt a bit desperate, and Jacinda firing back about the shooting cut straight to the truth Willow is trying to outrun. To me, Willow insisting she doesn't care about Michael's relationship, while clearly caring a lot, makes her position weaker, not stronger. That final warning about hell to pay right before Michael walks in, that's pure soap timing. And I can't ignore Christina being caught off guard by Ethan. Christina Corinthos Davis, suddenly reconnecting with someone like Ethan, who thrives on unpredictability, could shake up her current emotional balance more than she expects. It feels like the beginning of a wild card storyline. Overall, I think this episode is laying groundwork more than delivering payoff. Alliances are forming, grudges are deepening, and a few characters, especially Willow and Michael, are heading towards something that doesn't look easily reversible. I was honestly caught off guard by how intense that moment felt when Nina walks into her condo and finds Valentin just there. It's not just surprise, it's tension, suspicion, history, all colliding at once. And the way he immediately asks, "Who is asking, you or Jack?" To me, that says everything about where his head is right now. He doesn't trust the situation, and maybe he doesn't fully trust her either. I think Valentin assumes pretty quickly that Nina is being used, that Jack has pushed her into a corner and is now pulling the strings. And honestly, I was wondering if Charlotte already figured everything out too, because Nina's guilt feels so heavy here. She doesn't even try to hide it. She knows she's hurt her daughter, and that's what's really breaking her. What stood out to me is how Valentin responds, not with anger, but with understanding. He sees the pressure she's under. When Nina explains that if she doesn't cooperate, Willow could suffer, it really shifts the stakes. This isn't just about deception anymore, it's about protection. And maybe I'm wrong, but Valentin blaming Jack instead of Nina feels like a turning point. He's choosing sides. And then comes the strategy. Valentin basically tells her that if she wants to survive this, she has to play the game. Feed Jack information, but on their terms. To me, that's classic Valentin. Calculated, dangerous, but also protective in his own way. He positions himself as her best chance to take Jack down, and I can't help but think, is Nina ready for that kind of risk? Meanwhile, over at Carly's place, the tone shifts, but the emotional complexity doesn't. I actually liked the normalcy of her cooking with Lucas. It almost tricks you into thinking things are calm. But then that razor shows up, and suddenly everything feels exposed. Lucas picking up on that detail so quickly, it made me realize how well he knows her. And Carly trying to brush it off, that didn't last long. When she finally admits there's another man, I think that's where things get really interesting. Lucas immediately connects the dots. He's seen this pattern before, and he's worried. And honestly, I get why. Carly even admits this relationship has no future, which makes me wonder, why hold on to it? But then she describes this mystery man, and I started to understand her a little more. She says he gets her in a way no one else has in a long time. They don't judge each other. They don't play games or set conditions. That kind of connection is hard to walk away from, even if it's messy. At the same time, it sounds volatile. They fight a lot, they clash. It's not peaceful, it's intense. Maybe that's what draws her in. Maybe it's familiar. Lucas, interestingly, doesn't attack that. He just points out the obvious. This guy sounds important to her. And when he tells her to walk away from Brennan, it feels less like judgment and more like concern. But Carly isn't ready. She doesn't even fully explain why she's still with Jack, which, to me, suggests it's deeper than she's willing to admit. There's something unresolved there. And what really stayed with me is how she describes this other relationship as something that only exists because of circumstance, something temporary. But Lucas sees right through that. He knows that's not what she truly wants. In the end, his support feels genuine. No pressure, no ultimatums, just acceptance. And Carly's response, wishing she had given him that same support with Marco, that felt like a quiet moment of growth, maybe even regret. I think both of these storylines are circling the same idea. People making impossible choices when they're backed into emotional corners. And the real question is, how far are they willing to go before it all collapses? I think what General Hospital is setting up here feels less like a simple recovery story and more like a moral crossroads for Jordan Ashford. And maybe I'm wrong, but it has that classic, how far would you go to fix what's been broken energy. The physical trauma from the crash isn't just about scars. To me, it feels symbolic. When Jordan looks in the mirror and has that emotional reaction, it's not only about her face, it's about identity, control, and the life she's built. And that's where things start to get dangerous, because characters in this show rarely stay on the moral high ground when something deeply personal is at stake. I was wondering if the writers are intentionally echoing that old Ava Jerome storyline with Valentin Cassadine. Back then, the miracle surgeon wasn't just a solution, it was leverage. It came with strings, and those strings reshaped Ava's choices in a big way. This situation feels very similar, just with higher emotional stakes for Jordan. And then there's Jens Sidwell. I didn't realize at first how perfectly he fits into this kind of narrative, but now it seems almost inevitable that he'd position himself as the solution. Not out of kindness, obviously, but because it gives him power. If he offers Jordan access to some elite, almost too good to be true reconstructive surgeon, that gift could easily become a trap. To me, the real tension isn't whether Jordan can be physically restored. It's whether she'll sacrifice who she is to make that happen. Because accepting Sidwell's help wouldn't just mean looking the other way once. It could mean protecting him, covering up crimes, maybe even participating in them. And that's a huge shift for someone who's been so committed to taking him down. I think the show might be building toward a version of Jordan who's slowly pulled into Sidwell's orbit, telling herself it's temporary, until it isn't. That's usually how these deals go in Port Charles. No clean exits, just deeper complications. And honestly, the most interesting question is whether Jordan would still recognize herself, even if the scars were gone. Because sometimes in General Hospital, the external healing comes at the cost of something much harder to repair. I think what stands out here isn't just the specific incident, it's the pattern. Nancy Lee Grahn has built a reputation over the years for speaking bluntly, especially when it comes to politics, and this feels very consistent with that. From her perspective, even something that might seem small or symbolic, like Donald Trump interacting with a delivery driver tied to DoorDash, comes across as staged or performative, and that clearly rubs her the wrong way. I was wondering if, for her, deleting the app isn't really about the app itself, but more about making a statement. It feels less like a practical move and more like a symbolic protest, almost a personal boycott tied to a broader frustration with Trump and what he represents to her. At the same time, I didn't realize how strongly she reacted to the appointment of Markwayne Mullin. That language is intense, and to me, it shows how emotionally invested she is in these issues. Whether someone agrees with her or not, it's hard to ignore that she doesn't filter much when she feels something is wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think this is where the divide around her comes in. Supporters probably see her as outspoken and unafraid to call things out, while critics might feel like the tone crosses into something more reactive than constructive. When public figures speak this candidly, it tends to amplify both admiration and backlash at the same time. And honestly, this kind of crossover, soap opera celebrity, political commentary, social media activism, feels very modern. It's not just about her role on General Hospital anymore. It's about how she uses her platform off-screen. I think this storyline on General Hospital is shaping up to be one of those layered, slow burn arcs that leans heavily into psychological tension rather than just action. And honestly, I didn't realize how interconnected everything was until I started piecing it together. From my perspective, Anna Devane's situation feels especially unsettling. Being locked away in a psychiatric ward, drugged and manipulated into appearing unstable, it's classic gaslighting, but taken to an extreme. The idea that Jen Sidwell and Ross Cullum orchestrated this so carefully that no one questions her sanity, that's chilling. And the fact that Anna genuinely believes Cesar Faison is alive again adds another layer. I was wondering if the show is deliberately keeping that ambiguous. Like, are we supposed to doubt her too? Then there's Jason Morgan, whose disappearance initially seemed like a separate plot, but tying him to the same location as Anna, that changes everything. To me, that detail, that he might literally be in the next room, feels like the kind of twist the show uses to build tension rather than immediately resolve it. It also echoes that earlier storyline with Peter August, which makes me think the writers are intentionally revisiting a captivity and control theme, but raising the stakes. What really complicates things, in a good way, is Ethan Lovett entering the picture. I didn't expect his return to tie so directly into this, but it makes sense given his history with Sidwell. His personal vendetta, especially with what happened to Holly Sutton and Sasha Gilmore, gives the story emotional weight beyond just a rescue mission. And pairing him with Sonny Corinthos feels like a strategic move. Sonny's motivation to find Jason naturally pulls all these threads together. I also find it interesting that Anna might actually see Jason, but not trust her own perception. That's where the psychological angle really hits. If she's been drugged for months, then even a real sighting becomes unreliable. To me, that's more disturbing than the physical captivity, because it means even the truth isn't safe. The involvement of Nathan West, or Cassius, depending on how that plays out, checking on Anna feels like it could be the turning point. It creates just enough outside contact for the truth to start slipping through. And I think the timing of Finola Hughes and Steve Burton being back is no coincidence. It feels like the writers are building toward a major payoff. Maybe not a quick rescue, but something more drawn out, where Anna and Jason have to rely on each other mentally before they can even attempt to escape physically. As for the big questions, I'm not entirely sure. Part of me thinks Anna isn't completely wrong about Faison. Soaps rarely introduce that kind of detail without a payoff. But at the same time, the show is clearly playing with the idea that she could be unraveling, at least from everyone else's perspective. If I had to guess, I'd say Ethan and Sonny disrupt Sidwell's plan, but not cleanly. Something probably goes wrong or gets delayed, just enough to stretch this into that summer arc you mentioned. And honestly, I think the real story isn't just whether they escape, it's whether Anna can trust her own mind again once she does. I think the show is being pretty deliberate here. This doesn't feel like random tension, it feels like setup. From my perspective, Ezra Boyle isn't just in trouble. He's drifting into the exact danger zone that General Hospital uses when it's about to write someone out in a dramatic way. Let's start with Jen Sidwell. I've noticed he doesn't just punish failure, he reacts personally to disrespect. And that scene at Windermere, that wasn't just business frustration. When Ezra Boyle pushed back and implied Sidwell might be the problem, I was thinking, yeah, that's the kind of line that gets you killed in soap villain logic. And the gun? That didn't feel like a throwaway threat. To me, it felt like classic foreshadowing. I didn't realize at first how consistent the pattern is with Sidwell, but looking back, Henry Hank Dalton got shot after becoming a problem. Drew Kane didn't die, but honestly, his fate might be worse, completely incapacitated. And all of that ties back to Willow Kane being manipulated into doing Sidwell's dirty work. So I was wondering, are we watching the same pattern play out again, just with a different ending? Then there's Ezra's behavior after the confrontation. Him getting drunk, ranting, and even dragging Laura Collins into it. That's the kind of loose cannon spiral soaps use right before something big happens. It makes him vulnerable, and more importantly, unpredictable. And Sidwell doesn't tolerate unpredictable. To me, Ezra feels expendable in a very specific storytelling way. He's not deeply embedded in multiple storylines, so if something happens to him, it creates shock value without blowing up the canvas. That's usually a red flag in soaps. I may be wrong, but it really feels like we're heading toward one of two outcomes. Ezra gets eliminated quickly, something sudden and shocking, possibly tied to that gun. Or he ends up as another example, like Drew, used to reinforce how dangerous Sidwell really is. Either way, I don't see a safe path forward for him unless he completely backs down, and even that might not be enough now. So yeah, I think Dead Man Walking might not be an exaggeration here. I think what General Hospital has done with Willow might be one of the boldest character pivots the show's pulled off in years, and honestly, it feels long overdue. From the moment Willow arrived in Port Charles, I remember thinking she had layers waiting to be explored. She wasn't just another newcomer. She was tied to Charlotte Cassadine as a teacher, clashing with Nina Reeves, romantically linked to Harrison Chase, and wrapped up in that eerie dawn of day past. On paper, that's a gold mine. But somewhere along the way, I felt like the show smoothed all of that out. Once she married Michael Corinthos, survived leukemia, and stepped into motherhood, Willow became predictable. Not bad, just flat. Like the writers didn't quite know what to do with her once she achieved happiness. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's exactly why the affair with Drew Kane hit so hard. It didn't just shake up her life, it cracked open the version of Willow we thought we understood. I was wondering at the time if the show would really commit to making her messy, or if it would just be a temporary detour. They committed. The shooting changed everything. What really got me wasn't just that Drew was shot. It was that Willow stood there, insisting she didn't do it, almost convincingly. For a moment, I think the audience wanted to believe her, because that's who Willow had always been, the moral center, the too-good character. Then the reveal landed, and suddenly, everything we thought we knew about her flipped. To me, that's when Willow became interesting. What followed almost feels like watching a slow psychological unraveling. Drugging Drew, indirectly causing his stroke, keeping him trapped in that state. That's not just soap drama, that's a full descent. And yet, I didn't feel like she turned into a cartoon villain. There's still something human there, especially in how she aligns herself with Sidwell and manipulates Nina. It's ruthless, but it's also oddly calculated, like she's convincing herself every step is justified. And I didn't realize how much the character needed this until now. Because suddenly, Willow isn't reacting to story, she's driving it. I also think this shift gave Caitlin McMullen room to really stretch. There's a tricky balance here, playing someone who's doing terrible things but still letting traces of their original self bleed through. If you go too dark, you lose the audience. Too soft, and the stakes disappear. Somehow, she's walking that line. What fascinates me most is that the show didn't erase Willow's goodness, it twisted it. It's still there, just buried under fear, anger, and desperation. And maybe that's why this storyline works. It doesn't feel like a replacement, it feels like a mutation. I think in a strange way, Willow is more herself now than she's ever been. I think the show is definitely setting this up to feel connected, even if they don't reveal it right away. Ethan's return, now played again by Nathan Dean, already feels intentionally mysterious. That dock scene with Lulu Spencer asking, "Do I know you?" doesn't play like a simple family reunion. To me, it feels like he wants to stay in the shadows at first, which usually means he's in the middle of something bigger. Now, when you line that up with Anna Devane's situation, things start to click. Anna's been off-screen after that brutal kidnapping tied to Jen Sidwell and his operation, and last we knew, she was left in a fragile mental state in France. That's not the kind of storyline GH just quietly wraps up. It's the kind that needs a rescue, a twist, or both. I was wondering if Ethan's return is less about Port Charles nostalgia and more about a mission. He's always been written as someone who drifts into dangerous territory, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's tangled up in something like the WSB or tracking a bigger conspiracy. If Ross Cullum really is playing a double game, Ethan could be one of the few people who's figured it out. And then there's the wild card, Caesar Faison's lingering influence. I didn't realize at first how easily the show could tie his final project into whatever's happening in that French facility. If that place isn't what it seems, Ethan showing up quietly, avoiding even Lulu at first, starts to make a lot more sense. He might be trying to protect her or keep his operation under wraps. As for Anna's return, Finola Hughes coming back soon pretty much guarantees payoff. I think Ethan could be the bridge that brings her home, either by helping her escape physically or by uncovering the truth behind what was done to her. So yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence. It feels more like the show is weaving two returns into one storyline. Ethan as the undercover mover, and Anna as the emotional center of the fallout. I might be wrong, but if GH plays this right, this could turn into one of those layered arcs where everything, WSB intrigue, mind games, and family ties, collides at once. I think this whole situation is shaping up to be one of those classic misdirection spirals that General Hospital loves to pull off. And honestly, Lucas feels like he's being set up as the perfect scapegoat. From my perspective, Cassius Faison, posing as Nathan West, didn't need hard proof. He just needed to plant a seed. And I was thinking, the moment he pointed out that Lucas Jones disappeared around the time Marco Rios died, that was enough to send Jen Sidwell down a very dangerous path. To me, Sidwell isn't investigating anymore. He's hunting. And when someone's in that mindset, logic kind of goes out the window. It doesn't really add up that Lucas would suddenly snap and commit something that brutal. But I didn't get the sense Sidwell cares about what makes sense. He just wants someone to pay. Now here's where it gets interesting, and honestly, a little scary. I was wondering if Ross Cullum might see this as the perfect opportunity. Because if he knows Lucas has information from Marco's phone, then Lucas isn't just a suspect. He's a liability. And if I'm right, Cullum's next move could be less about defense and more about elimination. The idea of framing Lucas actually feels very on brand for this kind of storyline. Bringing Pascal into it makes it even more believable to me. Pascal already has emotional motivation, he blames Lucas, and access, which is honestly the most dangerous combination in soap logic. Since Lucas is staying at Windermere, I think it would be almost too easy for Pascal to plant Marco's phone in his room, and I didn't realize how neatly that would tie everything together until thinking it through. Sidwell gets proof, Pascal gets revenge, and Cullum walks away clean. But maybe I am wrong, because sometimes General Hospital flips these setups at the last second. Still, if this plays out the way it's being hinted, Lucas is walking straight into a trap he doesn't even see yet. And to me, that's what makes this storyline tense. He's not just in danger physically, he's in danger of being completely cornered with no way to prove his innocence. I think what really stood out to me about this fan event is how General Hospital continues to blur the line between on-screen drama and real-life connection. When Laura Wright and Chris McKenna showed up at the Stress Factory in New Jersey, it didn't feel like just another promotional stop. It felt like an extension of the story itself. There's something kind of surreal about watching actors unpack chaos that fans are actively watching unfold, almost in real time. One moment that stuck with me was McKenna jokingly singing Sweet Caroline to Wright, a playful nod to Carly's full name, Caroline Spencer. It's light, funny, but also a reminder of how deeply fans are attached to these characters. That kind of shared language between actors and audience doesn't just happen overnight. Now, when it comes to Carly's current storyline, I have to admit it feels like one of those classic soap setups where you just know everything is going to explode. She's trying to build something real with Jack, but at the same time, she's hiding Valentin in her house and crossing lines that make the situation even messier. To me, it feels less like a love triangle and more like a ticking time bomb. Wright's perspective on Carly's emotional state made me pause a bit. I was wondering if she'd lean into guilt or justification, but instead she framed it as heartbreak. That idea, that underneath all the bold, questionable decisions, Carly is grieving the relationship she thought she could have, actually makes the storyline feel more grounded. It's not just scandal for the sake of drama, it's loss, denial, and maybe even a bit of self-sabotage. At the same time, I think Wright is right about Jack. From her point of view, he's not necessarily betraying Carly. He's being exactly who he said he was, a spy. Someone who operates in half-truths and secrets. And maybe Carly believed she could exist in that world without getting burned. That's where it gets interesting, because it raises the question, did she ignore the warning signs, or did she just hope this time would be different? And then there's that line she dropped, the wreck is coming. Honestly, that feels less like a tease and more like a promise. Soap operas thrive on inevitability, and this storyline feels like it's heading straight toward one of those emotional collisions where nobody walks away clean. I also found it interesting how Wright talked about performance choices, especially those reaction shots before commercial breaks. That quick moment, like Carly reacting to a phone call, might seem small, but it's actually doing a lot of work. I didn't really think about it before, but she's right. Those seconds are what pull viewers back after the break, or even after the weekend. It's almost like every scene has to earn its continuation now. And maybe that's the bigger shift she's pointing to. Back in the day, the Friday cliffhanger was everything. Now it feels like every episode has to carry that same weight because attention is so divided. I get the sense that actors like Wright are constantly thinking about how to keep that momentum alive. What stayed with me most, though, was her reflection on fans. There's something quietly powerful about the idea that viewers have grown up alongside her, and that she's watched generations of families connect through the show. It makes General Hospital feel less like just entertainment and more like a shared timeline. And then there's her work outside the show, like The Sacred Circle. To me, that feels like an extension of the same connection, just in a more personal, grounded space. It's not about characters anymore, but about real people trying to find authenticity and support. Overall, I think this event revealed something important. The drama we see on screen might be scripted, but the emotional investment from both the actors and the audience is very real. And if Wright is right about what's coming next, this storyline isn't just heading for a twist, it's heading for impact.